Now, the Equality Act also gives SQA a power to specify, and I know the language is a wee bit complex. We've made specifications on those adjustments that should not be made. So basically there's a clause in the Act which allows SQA to specify adjustments which it is saying they are not reasonable in particular qualifications. All the new qualifications that were being developed under our Curriculum for Excellence programme, or under the Curriculum for Excellence programme, went through an equality review process. So as at each stage in the development, as the new qualifications and assessments were being developed, those developing the qualifications had to have due regard to the potential barriers within the qualification for any candidate on grounds of any of the protected characteristics. This is not new. We have always taken steps to make our qualifications as accessible as possible. But the Act requires SQA to ensure that its qualifications are not unlawfully discriminatory. But the Act recognises that a qualification is designed to show what a candidate can do, what knowledge and skills the candidate has. So inevitably there will be some candidates who are unable to demonstrate particular skills. And as long as those skills or those capabilities are intrinsically important within that qualification, then there is no duty for SQA to remove that qualification. The qualification is not unlawfully discriminatory. The qualification is about, if you have a dance qualification, it is about physically being able to dance. It's not about choreography. It's not about the theory of dance. It's a performance qualification, and it is about dance. So every new qualification, those developing had to identify and record potential barriers for candidates on grounds of any of those protected characteristics. So, for example, when we were looking at the qualifications for RMPS, we were considering issues that might be in there for candidates on grounds of religion and belief. You're dealing with fairly sensitive issues. When we were looking at the prescribed text, Scottish texts in English, we were looking at the texts that were chosen. Could they be potentially discriminatory for any candidate? So detailed consideration was given to that. Where we could remove something, where we identified the barrier, we did. Where we couldn't remove it, then it was justified because it was important in terms of that qualification. So all the qualifications went through this process. Where we identified barriers for candidates who were disabled, as part of that process we thought about, well, what adjustments could be made to remove the substantial disadvantage? Where an assessment arrangement normally would remove the disadvantage, so candidate has difficulty with reading. In the assessment, it's quite acceptable to allow the candidate to have ICT support or human reading support. So in many of the qualifications in geography and history and science, we could say that we recognise that some candidates, because of a disability, this might be a potential barrier. We can justify it in terms of the qualification, and here are the adjustments that would be acceptable. And that's the whole range of assessment arrangements. Where we felt in some qualifications there were certain adjustments that would not be acceptable, SQA decided, we identified those issues, and we decided to, using our powers under the Equality Act, to specify, to say up front, here are some adjustments which are not acceptable. They're very limited, and they're limited to very specific qualifications. Now, it's important to say that doesn't mean everything else is open, everything else can be allowed, but everything else can be considered based on the individual needs of the candidate and on the integrity and confidence and public confidence of the qualification. But where we felt there were some adjustments that we couldn't allow because they fundamentally undermined the qualification, then using our powers, we would specify these. But before doing that, we would consult with practitioners, with stakeholders, to get opinion back, and then make the decision on what we would specify. So all the specifications that we have published are available at this page on the website. As I say, they're very limited. There's about specific arrangements and specific qualifications, and I'm going to go through them very quickly with you just now.